JBL's latest Quantum Stream Studio is a successor to the popular Quantum Stream.
With a Sennheiser Profile USB mic at almost the same price, it makes for an interesting comparison. But which one's right for you, streamers, podcasters, and people who like to talk? Namaste, we are DHRME, Dutch humans remarkably maintaining eternity. It's getting... what?
Although we're looking at two tabletop microphones, that's where the first difference is because the Sennheiser is available with a boom arm. That streaming set version is more expensive, of course, than the basic set version, but we currently have the one with the boom for the Sennheiser and the tabletop for the JBL. The JBL isn't officially available with the boom arm, but that doesn't mean that you can't put the JBL on a boom arm. You can do that if you buy one separately, but it won't be a first-party accessory.
Now, both microphones are built really well with premium materials, although another big difference you're gonna notice is the lighting situation, like the lighting situation outside. It's just gone dark. The JBL is clearly made more for the streamer gamer, whereas the Sennheiser is going for a more serious neutral look. The LEDs on the JBL are used for different things. For example, if you were to put the microphone on mute, you see the ring at the top of the microphone turn red and back to green when you unmute. The Sennheiser does it with a button on the front. It's just not as glamorous. Also on the JBL, there is a dial on the front that's used to change various things, which also has an LED ring around it that changes its color when adjusted.
Apart from the mute button on top and the dial to adjust various options, there is one final button at the bottom of the JBL microphone. This button is used to adjust the pickup pattern of the microphone. The default is a cardioid for when you're recording by yourself for a podcast or stream, but the other options are a stereo mode if you want to use it to record a musical instrument, bidirectional for an interview setup, and omnidirectional if there are more than two people around the microphone. This is something you do not get on the Sennheiser. It's just a cardioid. That's it. All right, first test with the cardioid pattern. Pop, pop, popsicle.
Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3.
The next test with the omnidirectional pickup pattern. Pop, pop, popsicle.
Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3.
And the next test is with the stereo pickup pattern. Pop, pop, popsicle.
Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3.
And the final pickup pattern is the bidirectional one. Pop, pop, popsicle.
Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3.
However, the Sennheiser does have more buttons, or rather dials, than the JBL. For example, to adjust the microphone gain, the headphones volume, as well as how much you want to be monitoring through your headphones and how much you don't. We'll come back to the controls later.
In terms of adjustments, you can tilt both the microphones, but on the JBL, you get a couple of knobs to tighten the tilt angle, whereas the Sennheiser has built-in resistance, which means that it can stay in the position that you've set it to without you having to tighten or feel any knob. Although both products seem to be well built, we felt like there is a more of a metal and a sturdier build when it comes to the Sennheiser, and the overall build quality is also slimmer and slightly smaller compared to the JBL. They're not earth-shattering differences, but if you're someone who's going to travel with your microphones, it's probably good to know.
In terms of what you get in the box, the tabletop version includes the microphone. Then there's a cable, but the Sennheiser gives you a 1.2 meter cable, whereas the JBL gives you a much longer 3 meter USB cable, which is braided. Personally, the braided cable is much nicer and definitely fits the aesthetic of the streamer or gamer, especially with that orange accent on the USB end. However, the big downside, at least for our setup, is that the JBL gives you a USB-C that goes into the mic to a USB-A that has to go into your computer or other device. I don't know about you, but we've kind of gone all in on USB-C.
And that's where Sennheiser comes in, because you get a USB-C to USB-C cable. Do note that if you buy the Sennheiser Profile USB streaming set, you'll get a boom arm, and the cable is much longer at 3 meters so that it can go across the boom arm and then plug into your setup. And there's space on the boom arm itself for cable management, which is really sweet. But if you opt for the base set, then you'll get a table stand instead of a boom arm. Finally, with the Sennheiser streaming version, you get a soft pouch dust bag as well. Personally, we like this addition because the microphone can collect quite a bit of dust in the grills and little spaces and nooks and crannies. So having a little dust bag over the microphone is actually very smart. But if you're talking about packaging, then we've got to give it to JBL. They've been doing this with their headphones as well. Very minimal packaging with almost zero plastic being used and all paper. So a special shout out goes to JBL for that.
You also have a 3.5mm audio jack at the back of both of these microphones to be able to monitor your audio using headphones. Those are obviously not included in the box. And speaking of monitoring the microphone, it is relatively easy to do, but the adjustment of the gain is far easier on the Sennheiser. The reason is that the JBL tries to do adjustments of the gain of the microphone, volume of the headphones that you've plugged in, and how much you want to be able to hear yourself all on one dial. You can toggle between the different modes by pressing on the dial. On the Sennheiser, it's far more intuitive and quicker to be able to make these adjustments since each of these settings have their own dial. But because of this design aesthetic, we can easily see people gravitating towards the JBL just because of how much easier and simpler it looks to the eye compared to the multi-dial complexity on the Sennheiser.
In actual day-to-day use, we've got to give it to the Sennheiser for quick and easy adjustability. But if you're the type of person who sets it and forgets it and you barely ever have to make any changes, then either is going to be perfectly fine. One upside of the JBL is that you do see a gradient of the light changing as you turn the knob for gain or volume. On the Sennheiser, it's really a matter of feel because it's a smooth dial that has no clear markings, but neither can really make very fine-grained adjustments due to the free scrolling dials.
Enough talking. Let's get to testing, shall we? And another reference is a portable lavalier mic, such as the DJI Mic 1. This is for reference how I sound on this device. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And another reference is this shotgun mic up here, the Sennheiser MKE 600, which I generally use for most of my A-roll shots in the YouTube videos. And for reference, this is how I sound. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Softly. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, we're going to test the JBL Quantum Stream Studio. First test is at 10 centimeters away from the microphone. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Now let's do this softly. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Now, this is a test on the Sennheiser Profile USB mic at 10 centimeters away from the microphone. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And now softly, pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Now it's the same test, but at 20 centimeters away from the microphone. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Now let's try it softly. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Now, this is at 20 centimeters away from the microphone. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And now softly, pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And this is at 50 centimeters away from the microphone. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And now softly, pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And now at 50 centimeters away from the microphone, pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And now softly, pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is a maximum gain test of the JBL Quantum Stream Studio. So let's see how the maximum volume sounds. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. And this is a maximum gain test on the Sennheiser Profile USB at 20 centimeters distance. Here we go. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3.
The first thing we notice between the two is that the JBL has noticeable higher gain. It gets considerably louder than the Sennheiser, albeit with some clipping in the audio. I guess that's why it's chunkier. There wasn't an earth-shattering difference again in sound, and there was no audible noise floor, which is to be expected when it comes to microphones from companies of this pedigree. Apart from that, we're quite happy with both microphones for live streaming, shooting a quick voiceover for our videos, or heck, even for doing Teams meetings, which we've done plenty of.
The Sennheiser comes with no app. What you see is what you get, and we dig it. But the JBL does have one, and it's called Quantum Engine. And that engine needs to be looked at by a mechanic. It doesn't work on macOS, just doesn't detect the microphone. And I'm not the only one facing this issue. Plenty of people with similar and different JBL products are facing the same issue for many years now. But what does the app on paper get you? You get some microphone settings like an equalizer, the ability to configure the RGB LED light colors and effects, as well as update the firmware. That last one seems especially important. We reached out to JBL about this, and we'll post what they say as a comment on this video.
If you're trying to choose between these two microphones, we think the choice is simple. If you really need a microphone for interviews or recording a musical instrument, then the additional pickup patterns on the JBL Quantum make a lot of sense. But if you don't, then the more compact and cheaper Sennheiser Profile is the way to go.
And now for a more nuanced breakdown. We love the Sennheiser for more than just the size and price. It comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable, has individual dials for each configuration, and overall a more understated aesthetic. But the JBL has more to offer than just the multiple microphone pickup patterns. It has gamery appeal with its large and bright LEDs, higher microphone gain, a longer USB cable, and potentially an app if that, by some miracle, ends up working for you.
And what ends up working for us is you guys. As in, you guys don't work for us, but it works out. Anyway, you know the policy of this channel. No money exchanges hands between DHRME and companies whose products we review. The words sponsored and review, they just don't go well together. So a big thank you to our patrons and YouTube members. And we can't forget to give a special shout out to our Fakman tier members, Paula, Gamma Panda, and Radioactive Iguana Dude. You've been gaining profile at a quantum level.
And we've been DHRME. Dewey.
Namaste. We're
Pop, 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 pop.
Whereas the Sennheiser has built-in resistance, which means you... Whereas this...
Don't. We'll... Let me do that again.